Welcome to the Sisterhood of Sweat. I am here today with Shirley Weir, and I'm really excited to do this episode. I heard Shirley on Lori Massicot's podcast, and she was talking about her organization, Menopause Chicks, and she just had so much information, and she has written a book called Mokita, and I was fascinated by the title because the title means the truth we don't speak of, that we don't talk about. And that is pretty much how I feel about when you get a little older and you begin to age and, you're getting to that point. Nobody wants to talk about it. It's like it's this dirty secret or something. And, I'm just really think this is an important conversation for us to have. So I think that knowledge is power, and Shirley Weir is on a mission to empower women to navigate perimenopause and menopause with confidence and ease. That's my kind of gal. She is the founder of MenopauseChicks.com, and it is a popular private online community. And she recently published her first book, Mokita, which reached #1 on Amazon in women's health in October 2008. And it is my pride and privilege to welcome Shirley Weir to the show.
So, whoops.
Say it again.
Hi, thank you.
Yeah, it's absolutely a privilege to have you on to talk about this subject. And tell us a little bit about your journey, how you even came to write a book called Mokita in the first place.
I know, right? Like if somebody had have told me that I would be a menopause chick when I grew up, I never would have believed them. The life has some interesting things in store for us. And I had a career in marketing and communications. I was, self-employed for 20 years. And then when my own health started to have some noticeable changes, I did what every other smart, savvy woman would do. I went to Dr. Google, and and I was really frustrated and confused and overwhelmed with the information that I found there, or should I say the information that I didn't find there. So if you do use Dr. Google and you search for words like perimenopause and menopause, this is 6 years ago, it's probably about 10 years ago when I first started looking for information for my own health, and all I would get was like pop-up ads for how to lose my belly fat. And I couldn't really find the quality health information, even that's equivalent, if you have children and you're giving them, that preparation education for before they reach puberty. I think there's a lot of quality information and conversations going on, but I couldn't find the same thing for women in midlife. And so that really intrigued me. And fast forward a few years later, after being to the doctor and the bookstore and the vitamin store, I really felt that there was a need to crack open this conversation for women. I believe so strongly that women, midlife women are holding up our world right now.
Yeah.
And we deserve quality information. It's so cluttered with marketing messages and media innuendo about some of those things that you alluded to, like why don't we talk about the aging process? Why does the word menopause have so much baggage attached to it? And so when I went to write my book, I was sure that the word menopause or perimenopause would be in the book title. And then this word Mokita found me. And it's actually a word that originates in Papua New Guinea. It literally means the truth we all know but choose not to speak of. And so I knew immediately that menopause and perimenopause are definitely examples of mokitas. and to, you know, and so is, you know, sex and religion and lots of money, lots of other things would, you know, classify as Mokita. But I'm right now very passionate about talking about perimenopause and menopause. And in Papua New Guinea, there's a tribe called the Kavila tribe, and they actually measure the health of their tribe based on how many Mokitas there are. So I thought, wow, that's really fascinating. Imagine if the health of our society or our community was being measured by the number of things that, you know, those elephants in the room that we're not actually talking about. And when we do talk about them, we feel better and we feel more empowered and we ultimately feel healthier.
Well, for sure. And when you wrote the book, had you ever written a book before, or is this your first go out writing?
Yeah, this is my first. I mean, I've always done a bit of writing, and I had released a couple of ebooks when I first started Menopause Chicks. But yes, this is my first book.
Well, it's fabulous, and I love how you have so many case studies in the book. And I certainly could have been one myself. I remember when I started into menopause, I remember always being afraid of it because it was this thing nobody ever talks about.
Right.
And I remember when we spaded my dog Peanut, she grew a huge belly. And she, you know, for no reason, because there was nothing different but being spaded. And I just think in my head, I was like, oh my gosh, this is probably what menopause is like. And when I was beginning to compete, I was going through a menopause, and I remember thinking, well, I had been competing for a while, and I thought, oh my gosh, am I going to stand up there and stroke this menopause belly? I mean, what am I going to do? And I had to think seriously, should I be competing right now? Maybe this isn't such a good idea. I'm having hot flashes, and, you know, one minute you feel like ripping your clothes off, and the next you're like wondering why you're eating so perfectly and exercising well, and you're not getting the same results. It's like I had to pull out all of the stops. But I asked myself this question, well, how do you want to go through menopause? And the answer was full blazes ahead. So I got in the best shape of my life when I was going through menopause. So I know that, you know, to the listeners out there, this is doable, and it isn't the scary thing that it's made out to be, as long as you're empowered with the knowledge that Shirley is going to bring today. And so what are some tips that you can give anybody out there that maybe is in the throes of menopause today or perimenopause?
Well, you know, the golden piece of advice, if there is any, is get as informed as you possibly can. So pressing the pause button, pardon the pun, doesn't do you any good. And, you know, I have a community of 10,000 women. We take pride in meeting women where they are. So, but what happens is there's too many women right now, I believe, who are waking up in their mid to late 40s or even early 50s, knowing nothing about how their body is going to change. And it's inevitable. You can't live in denial. And so I really advocate towards women getting as informed as possible. I mean, my ultimate vision would be that every 35-year-old woman knows about perimenopause and knows what to expect. And that's a huge challenge for us right now. First of all, we're trying to overcome the myth that menopause means you're old, and it does not. You know, the average age of menopause in North America is 51.2. It's halfway. We're the first generation of women who are turning 50 and have 50 more amazing years to plan for. But it's also an opportunity to listen to the taps on your shoulder, you know, those little taps you get that say, maybe it's time to pay attention to how you eat, move, and sleep. and manage stress, right? So it's an opportunity to invest in your health, to pay attention, to listen to those little triggers, warning signs, whatever you want to call them, and say, oh, I bet if I just tweak this, or like you said, you invested in getting in the best shape possible. Another way to look at that would be like my own personal journey. And I talk about this in my TED Talk. I remember, forget the exact year, but it was on New Year's Eve. And I was laying in my bathtub, and I had heard that Oprah had done this. So I thought, well, if it's good enough for Oprah, it was good enough for me. I gave thanks to my body. And I had never done anything like that ever. My bathtub was a place where I went and read all the magazines and, and all the articles about it, how to eat better and move better and do, be better, and for the first time, I actually ditched the magazines and I looked down at my body and I said, thanks for carrying me this far on my journey. And thank you for giving me 2 amazing children. And I've had just a different relationship with my body ever since. Yes, I am heavier than I was when I was 30, but that is a headspace that I have grown to love and to accept. And whenever anybody talks to me about weight, I mean, I always, first and foremost, your health is really important. So your weight plays a role in your heart health, in preventing diabetes, all of those things. But aside from that, if you are 20, 30, 40, 50 pounds heavier than you were in your younger days, it's just more of you to love.
Well, I think our conception, I mean, it used to be back in, in the 18th century, that people were loved for being a little more plump because it meant that they were, doing well.
Yes,
financially.
it did. Yes, it totally meant that. It meant something completely different. And the other thing is, in those days, women lived to be 50. So menopause was a non-event, essentially. And now we expect to live to be 85 to 100 years old. So, we have to change our paradigm about what that looks like. And we can decide to adopt all of the myths and the stereotypes and assume that we're going to, get fat, lose our brains, pee our pants. There's tons of messages that are delivered to women on a daily basis. Or we can decide that we want to spend the second half of our life, doing yoga, riding bikes, dancing our faces off, you name it, finding joy, right?
Well, that sounds good. Dancing our faces off and doing yoga. That sounds like a retreat to me, Shirley.
Let's do it.
I think we're going to have to. I haven't had one in a while, and I think I'm about to. And I really agree with you as far as the stereotypes and the things that we've been led to accept. And I also will go this far. I think that it really is a choice. When you hit menopause, how you want to go through it. It's a choice, and you have to shift the things that maybe you always did before to be in a certain, if being in shape is important to you, you may have to change them. Maybe you used to run 10 miles a day. I don't know, but maybe you're going to have to find a new way to work out if for some reason that your joints are failing you, or because you're not having the estrogen and all of the hormones. Sometimes it can also affect your joints and other things. Maybe you're going to have to find a new way to eat. And like I recently did, I gave up caffeine because it no longer served me. And so I think it's just finding those tweaks and realizing that, okay, this is just another shift.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I speak with so many women on a daily basis. And one of the things, I would say, identifying trends, if you will, that comes out of the community I work with is that this time of our lives, call it, whether it's 50, 53, whatever, women are experiencing an awakening, and they'll say things to me like, self-care. I'd never embraced it before, but now I get what you're talking about. Or, it might be an opportunity where women are identifying that they would like a new partner, or they'd like a new job, or they'd like a partner, or they'd like to be an entrepreneur. It's really it's a time for tweaking. And for some women, it's a time for turning things 180 degrees. It's very empowering.
It's definitely a time of change. And I think you can either just, I guess, fight it, or you can embrace it
Right.
and make it your own,
Exactly.
Now, for everybody out there, can you explain the different stages? Because I think there's some confusion around what is perimenopause, what is menopause, and what is postmenopause?
I'm so glad you asked that. We spend the very first thing that we do in the Menopause Chicks community is to get everyone on the same page so that we can understand one another. And I spend a lot of my time working with even members of the media and the medical community to ensure the same. Because I will tell you, there's a term, perimenopause, which is actually what I'm talking about most of the time. And it was only invented. That term was only created in 1996. So it's relatively new. Before that, menopause was an umbrella term that kind of covered all of the hormone fluctuations and the end of menstruation. So menopause is one day. It's the 12-month anniversary of your final period. So after you've gone 12 months with no bleeding, you have reached menopause. You actually don't go through menopause, you reach it. I reached menopause at age 49. Perimenopause is a phase of life that you do go through, and it's different for every woman, but typically is 5 to 15 years leading up to menopause. And it can include a time of hormonal fluctuations, but it doesn't mean suffering. So that's something that I really want to emphasize with your listeners, is that perimenopause and menopause are not synonyms for suffering, and they're not synonyms for symptoms, which I think is too often what we read in media and magazines and some of the marketing messages. Perimenopause simply describes the phase of life that's at the opposite end of the teeter-totter from puberty. So prior to puberty, hormones start to fluctuate, and then eventually, around the age of 12, but I understand it's getting younger and younger, then girls get their period. Puberty is not that one day, it's the whole phase of preparing your body, right? Same thing happens in perimenopause, except it's preparing you for the end of menstruation. And then menopause is the 12-month anniversary. And then every day after menopause is postmenopause. You're in postmenopause for the rest of your life.
Now, so that means that we're done with menopause then. If we're in postmenopause, menopause is over.
Well, menopause is one day. I like to say, invent a cocktail and throw yourself a party, because it's only one day in your life. So
I love it. Now, when you do hit that the stage of postmenopause,
yes,
what can we expect in that phase?
Oh, well, there's a number of things you can expect in postmenopause. Let me begin by saying that postmenopause really is, unless you have chosen hormone therapy, you are experiencing estrogen decline or depletion in postmenopause. Now, our adrenal glands do take over the production of some hormones, but certainly not at the same levels as years before. And so one of the topics that I really like to talk about with women around postmenopause is vaginal dryness. And that is something that, your hot flashes might dissipate. and your sleep might get better and your mood swings might go away. And a lot of women choose to kind of ride those little waves. For some, 20% of women, they're big waves. But for most of us, they're changes that can be managed. And women will say, you know what, I'm just going to ride it out. And that's fine. But vaginal dryness is one thing that doesn't get better with time. And, we talk about some of the myths and stereotypes. There's too many women that think that vaginal dryness only has to do with sex, or if you're sexually active. And what I want your listeners to know is that it's an important part of our body, could be the most important or one of the most important parts of our body. It is important for sex, but it's also important for those other things that we were talking about, like how comfortable you are when you're sitting or exercising or doing yoga or dancing. And so, vaginal dryness, vaginal atrophy can be very uncomfortable. And the very last thing we want is for women to suck it up or to think that they have to suffer in silence, because there are easy solutions, and you need to have a conversation with your doctor or your pharmacist about what those solutions are, so that you can enjoy vitality for your next 50 years. So that's, one answer to your question about what you can expect in postmenopause. I think the other thing, and we already touched upon it a little bit, is this awakening. It's that women will tell me that midlife shines a big bright light on who they are and what they want to do with their lives. And I see so many women starting businesses or starting new relationships or starting new lifestyle habits. And it's really empowering. It just brings such a smile to my face when someone's like, I always wanted to be a florist, so I'm taking a course and I'm just going to go do it. And I'm like, that's amazing. Right. Or, taking up yoga or becoming, a volunteer in their community. There's lots of room in our lives for living our best life, I think, at this time.
Yeah, I can attest to that. I really feel like that once you can kind of let go of what was, and one of my biggest role was being a mom to my 3 children.
Right, exactly.
And that was, I think I mourned a little bit over, the loss of that role. Not that I don't still have it, but my children are very self-sufficient and all over the globe, living great lives. And I had to go through that period to be able to just kind of let that go. So now I can enjoy the fruits of my own labor of doing the things I have never been able to do, because I've been raising kids since I was 19 years old. And so now I'm jumping into all sorts of arenas as an entrepreneur and a business owner. And so I would just encourage women to be empowered in postmenopause, that this is the time of life that you could strike out, in a new direction and sail to a new shore.
It's so, so true. I hear that story over and over again. And if I could just add, if we could bring it back to the health thing, the health topic, it's very important for women listening to this today to know that, celebrate your menopause milestone, but on the very next day, it's a great opportunity to ask yourself the questions about, what am I doing to protect my brain health? And what am I doing to protect my bone health? And the reason that I mention that is because if you go into any retirement community or seniors home today, you will find predominantly women. Women outlive men still. And the thing that worries me is that most of those women, not most of those women, many of those women are challenged with things like osteoporosis, dementia, incontinence. And that's not really the vision that I have for my life, in my last 15 to 20 years. And so I really want women to say, oh, here's my wake up call. Menopause is an opportunity. It's like an opening where we can say, I'm going to pay attention. I'm going to have a conversation with my doctor about my bone health, or I'm going to learn how to do Kegels so that I don't have to experience incontinence. I mean, I think it's just really, really a time of investment in ourselves and putting our own name at the top of our to-do list.
Well, absolutely. And just to refer to something that I just saw recently, our sponsor, Dr. Ohhira's Probiotics,
Mm.
they found that when women ages 48 and older took a Japanese probiotic supplement, which is Dr. Ohhira's, for at least 8 weeks, that their bone density was 36% higher when compared to those who didn't take the supplement. So 36%, that is a huge amount, because I
That's
remember,
amazing.
yeah, I mean, even taking, I think, there's different drugs that they like to put you on to increase your bone density. But I remember my mom, when she started just running a little, she would run, walk, and she would do some weights. It increased her bone density, but it was only 5%. So I would just say finding those things that will keep you, healthy and strong, like weight training, and,
Yes.
doing some body weight resistance and doing some yoga, and really, staying flexible so that your connective tissues don't shorten, so that you can still really have quality of life is just
Mhm.
super, super important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I interviewed a doctor last October at an event that I was hosting, and I was kind of doing rapid fire questions about different aspects of women's health. And you might expect a doctor to answer a question about bone health, with this is what you should take, or take this or take that. And do you know what she said? She said the best thing to do is to not fall. And I was like, not fall? Oh, isn't that an interesting answer? And then I realized, oh, if you peel back the layers of the onion, right? And it's like, okay, how do we prevent our, our older members of society from falling? Oh, we do that by strengthening our muscles now over time, by introducing concepts, such as yoga or Tai Chi, or, I think we're learning and growing as a society, but we're having first to overcome some of those stereotypes that we've brought along with us, that say, this is, we are now over the hill, or that this is the beginning of the end. And it's not, because we can really enjoy vitality by engaging in some of those activities that you just mentioned.
I think it's really, really, it's super important to be taking care of your joints, your bone health, and, some of the little ways to do that. I know hyaluronic acid is
Yes,
amazing,
yes,
amazing
it
for
is.
your joints, your mobility, and even your bone health. And it's delicious. It tastes like blueberry juice, you guys, if you get it in a liquid. And I absolutely love the hyaluronic acid. I've been doing many things like that, like turmeric, and just, making sure to take things that help, like with any kind of arthritis, like your apple cider vinegar, and just finding those things. One of the things which would be surprising to you is drinking some kombucha. Actually, it has glucosamine chondroitin
Mm.
in it. So, you know, I like kombucha a lot for the probiotic, and I almost wonder if that might be part of the reason that probiotics are giving you some strength and strengthening your bone health.
That's interesting. I'm going to look into that. I'm so glad you mentioned hyaluronic acid, though, because that's what I recommend for vaginal health too.
Oh, okay, because it
Yeah.
does help
Mm.
lubricate. It helps.
Yes.
Yeah, it helps
Yeah.
lubricate so much, you guys. Between actually, why I took it, why I started taking it, was I had inflammation and I was trying to lower inflammation, and then I started researching it. It helps in between, even besides, she says, vaginal health, in between your joints. Like,
Yep.
how people lose that jelly like substance and then they begin to grind.
Yeah.
It actually helps with that. And I was having Achilles tendonitis because I like to work out a lot, and sometimes I overdo it, I have to admit. And my husband would rub my heel and oh my gosh, I would almost come unglued. It hurt so much. And once I started doing the hyaluronic acid and also I'm doing some turmeric, that completely like almost 100% disappeared. Like,
Wow.
so I was like really sold on it then.
Cool. Good story.
So what else can we do for like, let's talk about mental, because
Sure.
I never knew what that brain fog was a thing. And so
Mm.
I, basically your hormones go bye-bye. But I mean, even with bioidentical hormones, I still was having some brain fog in the afternoon.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's interesting that you jumped right to the hormone fluctuations because I jumped there as well. So my first experience with brain fog was in my early 40s, and it scared me to death. The reason is I am self-employed. I'm the mother, at the time I was the mother of two younger children. And my older mother was living with us, and she was experiencing the first signs of dementia. So I immediately thought, okay, this is perimenopause. I'm losing my brain. I'd heard that might happen, and I have dementia. And I told my husband to find me a nice home. Like I really kind of really went overboard.
You were freaking out.
Now, when I look back, hindsight's 2020. I see that it might not have been perimenopause at all. I had burnt myself out. My stress levels were maxed. I wasn't taking care of myself. I wasn't practicing stress management. Sleep deprivation was at an all-time high. So sleep deprivation leads to brain fog. Stress leads to brain fog. And that's why I like to talk about how important it is to focus first before you jump, to the vitamin aisle at your pharmacy, or you jump to hormone therapy, which are all fine. But I would say very first, that bottom layer of the pyramid needs to be paying attention to how we eat, move, sleep, and manage stress. And I don't know if you saw this recently or not, but the World Health Organization has now classified burnout as an actual health condition. And when I look at women and what women are doing in our world right now in terms of, the workforce, the economic power, the volunteerism, all of the, aside from raising families and being part of the sandwich generation, stress is at an all-time high. And I believe it's one of the largest contributors to brain fog.
Well, I 100% can agree with you on so many levels, because I know you begin to secrete more cortisol when you're
Yes.
losing your
Yes,
estrogen.
exactly.
And so that is one of the most important reasons to keep your stress levels down, because
Yep.
cortisol is good only for certain things. You don't want to have too much of it because it breaks the body down
Yes.
and
Yeah.
also causes some of the brain fog you're experiencing.
Yeah. And for anyone listening to this, if it kind of sounds like so overwhelming and that you have so much to do, I think the key message is you may not be able to control the amount of stress in your life, but you do have a choice for how you manage it. So
Love that.
don't give up your exercise. Don't give up the walk with the dog. Don't give up finding 5 minutes to go out and spend in nature every day, or 10 minutes on the meditation mat. Like, don't give up those things. Your name has to be at the top of the to-do list, or it starts to become like a house of cards and it all falls down. And I know it because I lived through it. So, learn from me, please.
Well, I agree with you. And I think that was one of the things that I have never really thought that I carried much stress. I've always been able to manage it well. But when I hit perimenopause to menopause, I think it became harder and harder. And especially I believe like in menopause to postmenopause, because I was secreting cortisol at a high level because I no longer had the estrogen, even, so what I did, some of the things I did was just to make sure I'm getting, like you said, better sleep, trying to get to sleep on time, trying to do everything I can to have more solid sleep, or taking a cat nap in the day if I need to,
Yeah.
if I need to take a cat nap, I do it. And also I cut my caffeine completely, because and what I found after I did that is I'm not having as much brain fog as I was having, and my sleep is not as disrupted.
Interesting. That's amazing.
Yeah, so it's been amazing. I'm not quite at 21 days yet, but that's what I found. I found in the beginning stages of just cutting the caffeine was I feel like my thoughts are clearer, I'm sleeping better, and I'm experiencing some weight loss around the
Ooh.
midsection. So I really have to say, that's something you have to look at. And we had Cynthia Thurlow on, who also had a TEDx talk, and she wrote Primal Eating, and she talked about, she does a lot of testing. She's a nurse practitioner. She does testing with women to see if they have high cortisol levels. And
Yes.
one of the things she does recommend, if you do, is giving up your caffeine. I know that's not a popular not a popular thing, but I'm
Yeah,
telling
well,
you.
I mean, and all of us metabolize caffeine differently too. So it's important to lift the lid and look at those things in your life, whether it's caffeine or any other part of your diet that could benefit from a tweak, for sure. And I'm glad you mentioned the cortisol and your adrenal health, because there are so many experiences that overlap. So you might automatically think, because of your age or maybe because your periods are changing, that it must be progesterone and estrogen that are changing along with it. And that could be true, but it might also be thyroid, or it might also be cortisol. And there's many things that overlap, such as feelings of unhappiness or feelings of depression or anxiety, insomnia. One of the classic examples of cortisol imbalance is that feeling of I'm tired but wired, which, of course, is a caffeine experience too. But how many women do we know and work with that are like chronically tired, but still kind of wired and have the ability to get through their day and get through their to-do list? Yeah, so.
I think this is the time to clear some things off of your plate
Yeah.
and refocus your energies, because the tired wired thing can only go on so long
Until
before
you hit a wall. Yeah.
you're hitting a wall, you're experiencing burnout. In fact, I have a friend that was addressed with adrenal burnout, and she's just 50. So
Mhm.
I think that's a real thing. And your adrenals, tell us how that affects some of the other glands in the body.
Well, so the most important thing you can do, in perimenopause, so I'm talking about like 35 to 50, is to take care of your adrenals, because they will take over hormone production for you post-menopause. So when you stop ovulating, and you stop producing some of that estrogen that was always created in your ovaries, that's the adrenals' job. But if they aren't healthy, then they can't do that. And that's kind of when the house of cards comes falling down, right? And so, everything from fatigue, new aches and pains, anxiety, depression. Some women experience lightheadedness and dizziness. That overall feeling of being irritable or stressed. That some members of our society just kind of roll their eyes at. We don't roll our eyes at all. We know that those are real experiences. And the good news is they can be addressed if you can get, the right members of your health team, or the right supplements from, your pharmacy or your health food store. It just takes a little bit of investigating. It's like I don't know about you, but we all have those reminders that pop up for when our car needs servicing, and we're really great at taking care of our cars. And the reason why is that we want to protect our investment, right? It's an asset that we want to protect and have it run as effective and efficiently for as long as possible. And so why don't we do that with our bodies too?
I love that analogy. And in a prior episode with 71-year-old bodybuilder Ruby Carter Pikes, she brought up that she takes care of her body like that antique piece, not like that piece of junk car. She wants
yeah,
it to,
exactly.
run well and be like that antique piece that you show off because it's in such good shape.
It's an investment.
It is an
Yep.
investment in you. And if you're not used to investing in yourself, this is a time to start, you guys, because it will pay dividends and you can have, better years versus maybe what you thought you were going to experience. It can be, like they said, your golden years. It doesn't have to be this burnout thing.
Absolutely. I love
Now,
it.
when you reached menopause, you did something unusual. You threw an online menopause party
I did.
celebrating her menopause milestone. She and rock star Biff Naked like to discuss menopause in their online community. Tell us about this party.
Well, I had just made the decision that I was going to devote my work life to Menopause Chicks full time. And around that exact same time, it was my 12-month anniversary. And so I went online and I looked for menopause parties and I couldn't find any. And so I thought, well, I guess I better invent that too. So it was an online webinar, if you will, and members of my community jumped on, and I did invent a cocktail, and I had an opportunity to interview Biff Naked, and we just talked about all of the positives, some of the things that you and I have talked about today, but just about the opportunity to celebrate, the opportunity to put your own name at the top of your to-do list, the opportunity to try new things. And it was a really great milestone for me to, my underlying motive for doing that was I really want to shift the conversation that's either not happening, or when it happens about menopause, it has negative energy attached to it. And so the reason for the party was to identify a way to shift the conversation from negative to celebratory. And the reason that I want to do that is because I have a 16-year-old daughter. And my vision is that by the time she reaches midlife, that, first of all, we will have changed the conversation, changed the way we look and think and discuss this topic. But also, I think she'll kind of look, her and her friends will say, oh, was that even a problem? Like, I want it to be solved by then. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that with, the more we have a conversation about it, knowledge is power. And, informing yourself and arming yourself with the tools to navigate the process. And in a prior episode with Natalie Jill, she talked about that you can find evidence of both people that pretty much disintegrated, at
Right.
midlife, and people that are thriving.
Right.
And she said, you need to find the evidence for what you want. So if you want to thrive, you need to be looking at people that are thriving and what are they doing. And I really feel like it's a choice, and you've got the tools. Like, you need to be your own advocate, like Shirley says.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the best thing you can do is to get informed and then have conversations, and not, when I say conversations, I mean, it might be with your physician, but the most informed conversations might come from listening to this podcast, or bringing it up at your book club, or, maybe talking to somebody that you'd never think of talking to before, like your pharmacist has a wealth of information, or maybe your yoga teacher, or maybe, you know, there's an indigenous member of your community. You know, there's cultures around us who revere their elders, right? Like, I think in North America, we sometimes have this habit of thinking that old is bad, but there are other cultures in our world that that actually embrace the wisdom and the confidence that comes with aging. So, I mean, there's so many places where we can go to get this empowerment.
And you yourself were empowering women, taking over Oprah Winfrey's Twitter. Tell everybody about that.
Well, that just might be one of my most favorite things on my resume. What can I say? I'm a huge, long-time Oprah fan. And when the Oprah Winfrey Network launched, they had, I guess, this club. They called them owners. And so I applied and I was accepted, and I had an opportunity to tweet for the Oprah Winfrey Network Twitter handle for an entire weekend. So I didn't get a lot of exercise that weekend because I sat on my couch glued to my TV, but it was just amazing. Just amazing.
Hey, I think that's
the Twitter handle.
I think that's very exciting.
It was.
Yeah, I had a dream that we were BFFs, Oprah and I, and she would hunt me down for workouts. She wanted me to give her my latest workout. And so I love Oprah, so I can understand why that would be a highlight. Well,
I hope that's a dream that comes true. That sounds incredible.
Yeah, I would love to work out with Oprah.
For sure.
As I think we all would love to work out with Oprah.
Yeah.
Now, you have a private online community with tons of women, and you answer questions. Tell us a little bit about the community and how people can become a part.
Sure. It's hosted on Facebook, so it's really easy to find. It's called the Menopause Chicks private community. And it currently has 10,000, a little over 10,000 women in there. We post hot topics. We're recording this on a Tuesday, so today's hot topic is vaginal dryness. And so women are weighing in with either their questions or their experiences, trying to navigate their own journey. That's what we do. We empower women with education. We also have a social learning units section in that group. And so essentially that's like a set of articles of frequently asked questions. It's like going to a table of contents. So if you're new, you can quickly dive in and find the conversation that's most relevant to your current experience. And that's really important, I think, because it's quite a large bucket, menopause. You could be 35, you could be 65, and you might be in, your hottest concern or curiosity might, be any number of topics ranging from physical health, emotional health, and so on. So, and we are on average, there's about 15 to 16,000 questions and comments posted in there every month. And so you're going to, I think this is the best part, you're going to meet other women like you. And you're going to come away feeling validated, that you're not alone, that you don't have to suffer in silence, that there's somebody else out there who's been on the same journey. That might be me, but it might not be me. I can't have every experience. And so it's a really great place to connect women with information, with healthcare professionals who can support them, and with each other.
And where can everybody, get your book and reach you on social media?
Sure. So our social media handle is at Menopause Chicks on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And the book is called Mokita, How to Navigate Perimenopause with Confidence and Ease. And it's on Amazon.
And I just want to really acknowledge you so much for having a service and providing it to truly bring women together, which is what the Sisterhood of Sweat is all about, and help them and empower them and just give them the tools that they need to navigate the second part of life.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for this opportunity. This was so much fun.
Oh, it was great. And I thank you so much, everybody, for listening. And make sure to give Shirley a great review in iTunes and join her online community. If you need to have questions answered, I'm sure that somebody will hop in and give you the answers to all of your questions. Thanks again, everyone. And thanks for listening to the Sisterhood of Sweat.
Thank you.